So what if I told you that trying to fix your problems is actually the exact thing keeping you stubbornly, completely stuck in them?
I mean, it sounds completely backwards.
Right, it really does. But I want you to just picture this for a second. You were sitting at this small, maybe slightly crowded cafe
Hmm.
on a normal Tuesday afternoon,
Okay, I can picture that.
and you're sitting across this tiny, kind of wobbly table from a family member. Let's just say it's your mother.
Oh, wow. High stakes already.
Right. But it's nice. You can hear the low, comforting hum of other people's chatter around you. You hear the sharp, distinct clink of your own silver coffee spoon against the ceramic edge of your mug.
Yeah, and the air probably smells heavily of roasted espresso beans, maybe a hint of warm pastries from the display case.
Exactly. It is, by all accounts, a perfectly nice afternoon. And then she opens her mouth and says something entirely mundane.
Just a casual observation.
Yeah, like something about your hair or your job or the way you organize your apartment.
A comment so innocuous that, honestly, if a stranger passing by on the street made it, you wouldn't even break your stride.
You'd probably just shrug and forget about it 10 seconds later.
Exactly. But because it is her, because it's the person whose specific tone of voice, whose specific footsteps in the hallway you have recognized since childhood, your physical reaction is instantaneous.
It's explosive.
Yeah.
Before your conscious brain even registers the actual syllables she's speaking, your biology reacts.
Your chest tightens like someone just pulled a strap across your ribs.
Your heart starts racing. Your jaw clenches so hard you can literally feel the pressure in your teeth. And suddenly, out of absolutely nowhere, you are irrationally, overwhelmingly angry.
The air in that pleasant cafe just feels completely sucked out of the room.
Totally evaporated. Your defenses are up, you are snapping back, and that nice afternoon you were having is just, it's gone.
It is such a visceral, almost violently universal human experience. I mean, every single person listening to this right now has that specific person or that specific scenario that triggers that exact biological cascade.
Oh, absolutely. And it brings up one of the most frustrating questions we deal with. Why do the people closest to us, or the situations we care about the most, have the terrifying power to bypass our logic and trigger us so deeply?
And it's exhausting.
Yeah, it's so exhausting. Because think about what we normally do after that cafe interaction goes sideways.
We obsess over it.
Yes, we
But
spend hours, sometimes days, having these draining circular arguments, either out loud with them or, in our own heads while we're standing in the shower.
Trying to meticulously explain our boundaries.
Right, trying to logically convince them to change their behavior. We dissect their tone of voice, their phrasing, their intentions. We put all this agonizing effort into managing them.
And what actually happens?
A month later, you are sitting in the exact same cafe, listening to the exact same clink of the coffee spoon, having the exact same fight.
Which is exactly where the materials we are exploring in our sessions today step in.
Yeah, and this is where it gets really interesting.
Because these sources validate that profound frustration you're feeling, but they also entirely flip the script on how you are supposed to handle it.
They really do.
According to this stack of literature, trying to change that other person, trying to micromanage the external world, your family, your boss, your bank account so that you can finally feel peaceful inside, is a tragic, massive waste of your finite energy.
I have to admit, when I first read that, it felt like a really tough pill to swallow.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because when you are sitting in that cafe and your heart is pounding, you feel incredibly, undeniably justified in your annoyance.
Of course you do.
You want to point the finger outward and say, no, look at what they are doing to me. They are the problem.
It is the most natural reflex in the world to point the finger outward. But the sources offer this analogy that really forces a perspective shift.
Okay, lay it on me.
Imagine you are suffering from a severe, recurring headache. A really blinding, debilitating migraine that hits you every single afternoon.
Ugh, sounds awful.
So, you reach into the medicine cabinet and take a painkiller. The headache fades for a few hours. You feel some relief.
Right.
But the next afternoon, the throbbing is back, so you take another painkiller. And you do this for years. You are constantly treating the physical symptom, the throbbing in your temples, but you are never, ever investigating the root cause.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Right. Maybe your eyesight is deteriorating and you desperately need glasses. Maybe you are chronically dehydrated. The painkiller only masks the symptom. It does absolutely zero work to cure the underlying cause.
So if we apply that to the cafe scenario, the annoying comments from the family member, or the terrible micromanager at work, or even this persistently empty bank account.
Yeah.
Those things are just the throbbing headaches.
Exactly. They're merely symptoms of something else.
Wow. So treating the external world is literally the equivalent of popping endless painkillers.
You hit the nail on the head. Having a boundary-setting conversation with your mother is a painkiller.
Switching jobs to escape a bad boss is a painkiller.
Shuffling money between credit cards is a painkiller. It is a permanent, exhausting drain on your time and your emotional bandwidth.
Because the underlying root cause is still quietly running in the background.
Fully preparing to produce the exact same symptom for you tomorrow.
And that brings us to the core mission of our audio journey today. We are looking at a collection of fascinating, deeply provocative sources that suggest a pretty radical premise.
Extremely radical.
They argue that to permanently change our relationships, to change the flow of our finances, to fundamentally alter our physical day-to-day reality, we don't actually need to change a single thing on the outside.
We put down the painkillers and we address the cause.
It is a massive claim to make, but the mechanics of why they claim this are where the true value lies.
Because these sources introduce a foundational principle, which essentially states that the entire outside world is nothing more than you pushed out.
You pushed out. That phrase has literally been echoing in my head all week.
It's powerful, isn't it?
It really is. But let's break down what that actually means for someone listening right now, sitting in their car or walking their dog. What does you pushed out actually look like?
Well, the central idea is that everything we experience in our daily lives, how a romantic partner treats us, how easily money flows to or away from us, the level of respect we command when we walk into a boardroom, is a direct, unedited reflection of our internal subconscious state.
Okay, so think of the physical reality around you as a giant mirror.
Yes, a perfect mirror.
If you wake up, walk into your bathroom, look into the mirror, and see that your reflection has a scowl on its face, you don't grab a soapy cloth and start frantically wiping the glass.
Right, trying to physically rub a smile onto the mirror's surface.
That would look completely absurd. Anyone watching you scrub the glass to change a reflection would think you had lost your mind.
They'd call for help.
If you want the reflection in the mirror to smile, the only logical action is to smile yourself.
Yet, scrubbing the glass is exactly what we do in our lives every single day. We scrub the mirror, we yell at the mirror, we beg the mirror to change its expression so we can finally feel better.
We say, if only my partner would be more romantic, then I would feel loved.
Or, if only I had $50,000 in the bank, then I would feel secure.
We are demanding that the reflection smile first.
Which breaks all the laws of how a mirror actually works.
Okay, let me pause you there, because I can hear you, the listener, throwing up the exact same mental roadblocks I did when I first encountered this.
Oh, there are always roadblocks with this concept.
Right. Because people think, if I want a better reality and I try to act positive, if I force a smile at the mirror, why doesn't reality immediately change?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question.
Why do we stay so stubbornly stuck in these loops, even when we genuinely want to be happy? Our sources highlight 3 distinct psychological and energetic reasons for this.
And the first one they call subconscious validation.
Let's unpack that.
This is where we really need to look under the hood at how the human brain actually processes reality. We love to think our conscious, logical thoughts are the ones running the show.
We buy the self-help books, we say our positive affirmations in the car.
We try our absolute hardest to be optimistic. But beneath that thin layer of conscious thought, we harbor deep-seated, often entirely unexamined subconscious beliefs.
Like hidden programming.
Exactly. Let's say, due to past experiences, you have a hidden foundational belief that says, people always take advantage of me. That belief doesn't just sit there passively.
It acts like an aggressive piece of hidden computer code running quietly in the background of your operating system.
And to ground that in actual neuroscience, this isn't just a metaphor. When we talk about this hidden code filtering reality, we're essentially talking about the reticular activating system.
Their RAS. Yes,
Oh.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because the biology backs up the philosophy perfectly.
It really does.
The reticular activating system is a bundle of nerves at our brainstem that filters out unnecessary information. At any given second, your brain is bombarded with millions of bits of sensory data. Colors, sounds, physical sensations.
If you processed all of it, your brain would just overload and crash.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So your RAS acts as a bouncer at the door of a very exclusive club. And what are the instructions the bouncer follows? It only lets in the data that matches your internal subconscious beliefs.
So even if you paste a bright pink sticky note on your bathroom mirror that says, "I am respected by everyone,"
If your hidden code, your instructions to the bouncer, says people take advantage of me, the bouncer is aggressively filtering out anything that looks like respect.
it's wild to think about. That is the exact mechanism. Let's play this out in a real-life scenario from the text.
Sure.
Imagine you walk into a local electronics store to buy a simple cable. Consciously, your goal is just to make a quick purchase. You're trying to have a good day.
Just in and out.
Right. But subconsciously, that code, "people take advantage of me," is running the show. Because your brain expects conflict, your body physically prepares for it.
Oh, like your shoulders creep up near your
Your
ears.
breathing gets shallow. You approach the customer service counter already armored and anticipating terrible service.
You are literally biologically filtering the present moment
Yeah.
to prove your old fears right.
Yes. Your RAS is scanning the clerk's face, looking for any microscopic sign of disrespect to validate your internal belief.
So suppose the clerk is just exhausted because they've been on their feet for 8 hours, and they briefly look away to check a register tape.
Your brain instantly flags that data point. See? Disrespect, they're ignoring me. They think I'm not worth their time.
Wow.
Your internal code actively recruits neutral evidence from the physical world, twists it, and uses it to validate its own existence. You snap at the clerk snaps back, and you walk out of the store thinking, "I knew it! People are awful to me!"
You ended up creating the exact friction you feared simply because your subconscious demanded to be proven right.
Exactly.
That dynamic leads us so naturally into the second reason the sources say we stay stuck, which is a concept called frequency mismatch.
I love the analogy for this one.
Me too. Imagine an old school car radio. You're driving down a scenic highway. You can feel the warmth of the sun through the windshield. You feel the textured leather of the steering wheel under your hands. And you decide you want to listen to a smooth jazz station.
Sounds relaxing.
Very. But your radio's internal dial is physically tuned to a heavy metal frequency. Now, you can scream at the radio, you can tap the dashboard, you can wish for jazz with all your heart.
But as long as the internal mechanisms are tuned to heavy metal,
The speakers are only ever going to blast heavy metal.
it's the perfect way to visualize it. Physical reality is just the speaker system. It has no agenda of its own. It is simply faithfully playing whatever frequency your internal dial is currently locked onto.
You cannot change the music without reaching inside and turning the dial.
Right. If you are tuned to the frequency of lack or struggle, reality has no choice but to broadcast lack and struggle out of the speakers.
Which brings us to the third reason we stay stuck, and honestly, this might be the most profound and relieving part of the entire reading.
Oh, absolutely, because it completely shifts this concept away from the toxic trap of self-blame.
Yes, because the immediate terrifying thought I had when reading this was, oh great, if reality is my reflection, then every bad thing, every illness, every financial ruin that happens to me is entirely my fault. I am to blame for my own misery.
That is such a common and dangerous misinterpretation, and the texts work incredibly hard to clear it up.
Thank goodness.
These recurring triggers, these painful cyclical patterns you experience with family or money, they are not punishments from the universe.
Right.
You are not a victim of circumstance, but you are also not being penalized for having negative thoughts. Instead, these reflections, these painful moments, are actually teachers.
The text refers to this as the shadow opportunity.
To understand the shadow opportunity, we have to look at the intention behind the mirror. Your deeper consciousness, your broader self, wants to be whole and free.
Okay.
So it actively brings these painful, unhealed patterns to the surface of your physical reality so you can finally see them. You cannot heal an infection you don't know you have.
So the world is actually doing you a massive favor by showing you exactly where your internal wounds are bleeding.
Yes. The annoying boss is showing you where you lack self-worth. The empty bank account is showing you where you harbor a fear of survival.
There is a brilliant concrete anecdote from the materials that illustrates this dynamic flawlessly.
Ah, the restaurant story.
Yes. The author writes about taking a long flight back to their hometown. They land, they are exhausted, and they end up sitting at a restaurant with their mother, very similar to the cafe scene we opened with.
Setting the stage.
The mother makes a totally offhand comment about the author's lifestyle choices. Instantly, the author explodes in anger. Their voice raises, their chest gets tight. The whole restaurant probably turns to look.
A huge overreaction on the surface.
Right. But then, because the author understands this mirror principle, they do something radical. Instead of doubling down, blaming the mother, and storming out of the restaurant, they stop.
They pause the external reaction.
and immediately analyze the internal trigger.
Mm.
And this is where my instinct was to argue with the text.
Oh, why is that?
I was reading this and thinking, come on, wasn't the mother actually crossing a line? Wasn't she just being genuinely annoying and intrusive?
It's so tempting to judge the external action, but the text clarifies beautifully. The anger had absolutely nothing to do with the mother.
She was just the mirror.
Exactly. The mother was just the innocent glass of the mirror, reflecting the light. The author looked inward and realized that the intense anger was actually a symptom of their own deep, unhealed, internal fear of losing their independence.
Wow.
The author had moved out at 18, had built a highly autonomous life, but deep down in their subconscious, they still harbored a terrified, childlike fear of being controlled or dictated to by a parent.
So, the mother's mundane comment merely brushed up against that fragile, unhealed sense of independence. The fear of losing autonomy is what caused the explosion, not the words themselves.
To take that a step further, if the author had been 100% secure in their independence, the mother's comment would have landed like a feather on concrete.
No reaction at all.
None. Now, here is the absolute magic of applying the mirror principle. The author didn't lean across the table and ask the mother to stop talking. They didn't enforce a rigid boundary.
They didn't start a psychoanalytic fight.
Nope. Instead, right there at the table, over their half-eaten meal, they did the internal work. They internally affirmed to themselves, I am safe. I am a completely independent, autonomous adult. Her words cannot control my life. I am secure.
They reached in and shifted the internal dial.
Yes.
And the result in the physical world is staggering. The mother kept talking. She didn't change a single thing about her behavior or her tone. But the emotional trigger within the author instantly vanished.
The hot, suffocating irritation just evaporated into thin air.
Because the mirror had served its purpose. The reflection showed the author the wound. Once the internal wound was acknowledged and soothed by the author, the external reflection lost all of its power to cause pain.
The lesson was learned so the teacher could stop shouting. It's a stunning realization to internalize. If you change the inside, the outside either organically transforms to match your new state, or it simply stops affecting you entirely.
It just becomes background noise.
Exactly.
So if that is the theoretical foundation that the world is a mirror and our RAS filters reality based on our internal dials, what does this all mean for our daily practical lives?
How do we actually apply this?
Yeah, how do we actually start intentionally tuning that internal radio dial so we aren't just reacting to triggers all day? This brings us to a massive shift in perspective from our sources.
And this is a big one.
We need to stop viewing our thoughts as fleeting, harmless little clouds floating through our minds and start viewing them as actual hard currency.
The materials frame human energy and attention as a constant, non-negotiable daily investment. From the moment your eyes open in the morning to the moment you drift off to sleep, every single thought you entertain, every scenario you vividly imagine is a literal deposit into the bank account of your future reality.
I found myself thinking about this in terms of actual venture capitalism.
Okay, I like that.
Imagine you are a high-stakes billionaire investor. Someone walks into your sleek boardroom and pitches you a business. But the business is called Doubt Inc.
Or maybe it's a tech startup named Worry LLC.
Right. And their entire business model is based on failure and catastrophe. Would you pull out your checkbook and wire your life savings into those accounts?
Of course not. You'd laugh them out of the building and run the other way.
And yet, that is precisely the investment strategy we use with our attention every single day.
It really is. Think about the morning routine.
Oh, the morning routine is the worst for this.
You wake up, you feel the soft cotton sheets, you reach over to the nightstand to grab the glowing blue screen of your phone.
And within 3 minutes of waking consciousness, you are investing heavy, substantial capital into the anxiety startup.
You worry about a vague work email from your boss. You doubt your ability to pay a credit card bill that isn't even due for 2 weeks.
You vividly replay a humiliating argument you had with a neighbor 3 years ago.
By 7 a.m., you have actively funded the exact realities you desperately want to avoid.
It's deeply unsettling when you stop and realize how much of our daily thought budget goes toward terrible, toxic investments.
Yes.
But there's a flip side to that realization. Knowing this gives you immediate power. If every thought is an investment, you can start auditing yourself in real time.
You catch yourself in the act.
Yeah, You can be washing the dishes, catch yourself spiraling and say, wait a minute, I just spent 10 minutes investing massive emotional capital into the feeling of being rejected by my peers. Let me pull those funds immediately and redirect them to a better asset.
And how we go about redirecting those funds leads us to a critical distinction in the texts. Manifesting a new reality or shifting your timeline isn't an intellectual exercise.
It isn't about overthinking.
Or white-knuckling your brain into submitting to positive thoughts. If you are sitting there aggressively repeating, I'm rich, I am rich, I am rich, while your teeth are grinding, you are doing it wrong.
So wrong.
The texts insist that you need to get out of your head entirely. The head is where the analytical worry lives. The true compass for this process is the physical body.
This is where we need to do a physical check-in with you, the listener, wherever you are right now.
Take a second.
If you're listening to this while driving, notice the physical feeling of the steering wheel under your hands. If you're standing in the kitchen, notice the smell of the room, the feeling of the floor under your shoes.
Ground yourself in the senses.
Where are you holding tension right now in this exact second?
Yeah.
Maybe your shoulders are creeping up towards your ears. Maybe you have a tight white-knuckle death grip on your phone.
Maybe your stomach is in knots or your jaw is locked tight.
That physical restriction, that tightness in your muscles, is the bodily sensation of a poor energetic investment.
It's the physical manifestation of the feeling of lack.
The goal of changing your reality isn't just to repeat empty words. It's to shift that underlying physical sensation. You want to move your biology from that tense, contracted, defensive restriction to a feeling of profound release.
You are aiming for that warm, euphoric tickle of relief in the center of your chest.
It's the exact physical feeling of taking off a heavy 50-pound backpack after a 10-mile hike.
Oh, that's the best feeling.
That sudden glorious lightness where your spine just decompresses.
That bodily feeling of relief, of resting in the knowledge that your problem is already solved, is the true mechanism of change.
The universe, or the mirror of reality, doesn't speak English. It doesn't understand your vision board.
It speaks the language of your nervous system.
But, and this is a massive neon flashing but from the sources, we as humans constantly sabotage this delicate feeling of relief by insisting on micromanaging how we want our relief delivered.
Ah, the trap of conditions. It is the single biggest roadblock we put in our own way.
The text uses this brilliant, almost absurd analogy to explain the trap of conditions.
I love this one.
Imagine you are doing the internal work. You are visualizing a beautiful, brand new, cherry red Ferrari. You're doing it perfectly. You can smell the rich leather of the seats. You can feel the vibration of the massive engine in your chest. You feel that euphoric relief.
You are fully immersed.
But then your logical ego mind steps in and slaps a rigid condition on the fantasy. You insist to the universe that this Ferrari must be delivered to your driveway on a Tuesday by a specific delivery guy named Paul.
Right. Your ego has decided that Paul is the only logical, acceptable route for this manifestation to arrive.
You've narrowed infinite possibilities down to one hyper-specific bottleneck.
So the universe goes to work matching your frequency. A massive flatbed truck pulls up to your house. On the back of the truck is the exact gleaming red Ferrari you have been visualizing.
It's perfect.
The driver hops out of the cab, walks up to your front door, tips his hat, and says, "Hi, I'm Mike. I have your dream car here. Just sign these papers."
And instead of laughing with joy and taking the keys,
You cross your arms, glare at him, and say, "Nope, go away, Mike. I'm waiting for Paul."
when you frame it like a sitcom sketch, it sounds completely unhinged.
It's hilarious, but it's tragic.
Because we do this with our actual lives constantly, and the stakes are much higher. We deeply desire financial freedom, but we insist it must only come through a grueling promotion at our current miserable corporate job.
We desire deep, fulfilling, romantic love, but we insist it must be with a specific ex-partner who has repeatedly shown they don't respect us.
We desperately want the car, but we slam the door in Mike's face. We reject the solution because we don't like the packaging.
Exactly. Wait, let me rephrase that. You are pointing out the exact flaw in human logic. When we put strict, unyielding conditions on how our desires must arrive, we sever the path of least resistance.
We get in our own way.
The universe operates with infinite intelligence. It sees millions of interconnecting pathways and routes to deliver your desire that your logical brain couldn't possibly fathom.
Your job is not to dictate the how. The how is none of your business.
Your job is to drop the rigid conditions, accept Mike when he shows up, and simply maintain the internal bodily feeling of already owning the Ferrari.
That concept of already owning it Requires us to make a sharp pivot here because the sources introduce a concept that fundamentally shattered how I used to view goal setting.
It's a huge shift.
It's the critical difference between creating a future and selecting a future.
This is where we cross from standard self-improvement into a profound paradigm shift. Most of us operate our entire lives under the exhausting assumption that the things we want, a thriving business, a peaceful family home, a healthy, strong body, are things we have to painstakingly build from scratch.
We think we have to haul the heavy bricks, mix the wet mortar, and construct this future reality out of thin air through sheer exhausting force of will.
And when we operate from that builder mentality, we fall into what the reading calls the misconception of getting.
The misconception of getting is a fascinating, tragic paradox. When you are sitting there desperately trying to manifest or get something, whether it's a text back from a date or 1,000 new subscribers, what are you actually declaring to the universe through your internal bodily state?
You are basically standing on a mountaintop screaming at the top of your lungs, I do not have this thing.
Exactly.
And since the mirror of reality only reflects what you currently are and what you currently feel, it faithfully reflects your state of not having it right back to you.
The more you desperately, frantically try to get it, the more reality confirms that you don't possess it. It is a self-fulfilling loop of lack.
It's literally like being caught in quicksand. The harder you thrash around, the more aggressively you try to claw your way out, the faster you sink into the mud.
So this begs a massive question. If we aren't supposed to build our future, and we aren't supposed to try to get our desires, what on earth are we supposed to do?
The texts introduce a concept that challenges the very nature of time and space. They state simply, creation is finished.
I am not going to lie, I had to read that line 3 times. Creation is finished. My brain immediately fought back.
I think everyone's does.
What do you mean it's finished? I'm sitting here in debt, my business hasn't launched. How can you tell me it's finished? Walk me through how this doesn't sound completely crazy.
It requires a leap from linear thinking to quantum thinking. Creation is finished means that every possible reality, every conceivable timeline already exists simultaneously right now. The timeline where you are wildly successful, completely debt-free, and deeply peaceful already exists, fully formed, in the quantum field. The timeline where you are broke and stressed also already exists.
So it's all out there already.
Yes. You aren't in a sweaty workshop trying to build a new reality out of raw materials. You are standing in an infinite cosmic library, simply selecting which pre-written book you want to take off the shelf and read.
So you aren't constructing the timeline. You are shifting your consciousness into it. It's like changing channels on a television.
That's a perfect way to put it.
The cooking channel and the bleak 24-hour news channel are broadcasting through the airwaves at the exact same time. You don't have to go to a studio, write a script, cast actors, and film the cooking show yourself. You just have to pick up the remote and press the button to tune your receiver into that frequency.
The broadcast is already running. Your only task is tuning the receiver.
And how do we press that button? How do we actually shift our consciousness into the reality we want?
The sources provide a highly practical, surprisingly mundane exercise for this, based on what they call the difference list.
This exercise was incredibly eye-opening for me because it bridges the gap between this lofty quantum theory and my Tuesday morning routine.
Grounding it in reality.
Exactly. The core philosophy of the difference list is that you cannot wait for the new reality to arrive so that it can change your mood. You have to change your behavior first in order to enter the new reality.
If you want the reflection in the mirror to wear a new coat, you have to physically put the coat on your own shoulders first.
The difference list asks you to grab a piece of paper and ruthlessly, honestly compare the old you, the version of you that is struggling right now, with the new you, the version of you who is already securely living in the desired timeline.
And what struck me is that this isn't about grand, vague, philosophical concepts. It's about hyper-specific, almost boring, everyday behaviors.
Right. You have to ask yourself, if I already had the massive success or the deeply secure relationship, how would I walk through the aisles of the grocery store?
What kind of posture would I have?
What specific clothes would I pull out of my closet in the morning? How would I react if someone cut me off in traffic?
It forces you to look at your micro-habits. What knowledge would the new you possess? If the new you runs a highly successful 7-figure business, you wouldn't be sitting at your desk paralyzed by fear over a minor tax form.
You'd calmly know how to handle it, or you'd know who to hire to handle it.
The texts urge you to step into those specific mundane behaviors today. If you start walking, talking, dressing, and making decisions exactly like the new you, you physically lock your biological frequency into that new timeline.
You collapse the distance between where you are and where you want to be.
Precisely.
Okay, so we understand the overarching theory. We know we need to shift our frequency, drop the rigid conditions about how things arrive, and act as the new you.
But let's be honest about the human brain.
It is incredibly stubborn. It loves its old, familiar neural pathways, even if those pathways lead straight to misery and anxiety.
Familiar pain is often preferable to unfamiliar joy.
So how do we actually mechanically rewire the brain to accept this new timeline without it throwing a tantrum? Our sources offer some brilliant, actionable hacks to bypass the ego.
They do, and these exercises are specifically designed to overwrite your old programming at the root neurological level. The first one is a journaling technique called the end of story exercise.
I tried this one yesterday, and the physiological relief in my chest was immediate. Here's how it works. You take a physical notebook and a pen. At the very top of a blank page, you write down your current, messy, stressful struggle.
Like what?
You might write, "I am currently drowning in credit card debt," or "My partner and I had a terrible fight and are not speaking."
The key there is acknowledging the current reality without judging it or spiraling into despair. You just state the facts of the moment as data.
Then you leave a massive, glaring blank space in the middle of the page. You write absolutely nothing there. And at the very bottom of the page, you write your ideal, perfected outcome, but you phrase it as the end of a sentence.
Oh, I see.
Like, "But then I ended up wildly successful and financially free anyway," or "But then we healed the communication gap and fell deeper in love anyway."
If we connect this back to the bigger picture of the nervous system and the RAS, we can see exactly the psychological mechanism at play here. The anxiety we feel every single day lives exclusively in that blank middle space.
We stress over the details.
The human ego is obsessed with controlling the how. How will the debt get paid if I don't have a second job? How will the argument get resolved if they won't text me back? We agonize, plan, and panic over the middle chapters of the story.
We want to micromanage the messy middle.
We really do. But by leaving the middle physically blank on the page and permanently cementing the ending in ink, you are sending a powerful signal to your brain.
You are saying the messy middle does not matter.
Right. The chaotic, confusing events of tomorrow do not matter because the ending is already guaranteed. It effectively neutralizes the daily panic.
It allows you to walk through a difficult, stressful Tuesday, knowing that Tuesday is just an irrelevant bump on the road to a guaranteed Friday victory.
Which leads us to what might be the most challenging, counterintuitive, but potentially powerful strategy in our entire exploration today. The texts call it ghosting reality.
I like to call it the one-year ignore test.
This is a radical, almost confrontational approach to dealing with your current unfulfilling physical reality. It requires an iron will.
Imagine you are waiting for a text from someone you are dating, and they are ghosting you. You keep staring at the dark, silent screen of your phone. Or a more serious example.
Yeah.
You log into your banking app, and the balance is painfully, terrifyingly low.
Normally, we let those cold, hard physical facts dictate our internal weather. We see the low bank balance, and we immediately feel a physical sensation of panic.
We abdicate our internal throne and give the physical reflection all the power to dictate our mood.
But the one-year ignore test asks you to actively, fiercely ignore the absence of what you want. You give the physical reality zero power over your emotional state.
For an entire year, you commit to essentially ghosting the lack. If the flowers don't arrive, you ignore it. If the text doesn't come, you ignore it. You refuse to let the external mirror make you flinch.
No, let's address the massive elephant in the room here, because this is where people completely misunderstand the concept.
Yes, because my immediate pushback when reading this was, hold on. If I ghost my dangerously low bank account and just ignore the fact that I have no money, I'm going to get evicted from my apartment. The repo man is going to take my car. How is this actually practical advice and not just a recipe for financial and personal ruin?
That is the exact friction point we need to clarify. The ignore test is absolutely not about ignoring your practical physical responsibilities.
Okay, good.
If you have a bill, you pay it. If you need to go to work, you go to work. The text is talking about emotional detachment, not physical negligence. You don't ignore the action required by reality. You ignore the emotional story you attach to it. You look at the low bank balance, you take whatever practical steps are necessary, but you refuse to let it plunge you into a spiral of despair, worthlessness, or panic.
You don't let the low number mean that you are a failure. You separate the physical fact from your internal frequency.
Exactly.
Okay, that distinction is crucial. You handle the physical world like chores, but you protect your internal world like a fortress. You essentially starve the old reality of the emotional attention it needs to survive.
That's the perfect way to phrase it. Remember our earlier discussion? Attention is currency. By emotionally ghosting the unfulfilling reality, you are bankrupting it. You are pulling all your funding out of Wardy LLC.
And simultaneously, you redirect 100% of that emotional energy into cultivating your new self-concept.
You use that time to build your internal feeling of worthiness, wealth, and security. You become so internally bulletproof that a delayed text message or a frustrating bill literally cannot spike your heart rate.
To help fund that new self-concept, the texts offer a very specific verbal rewiring tool. I'm calling it the 5-sentence language hack. It challenges you to strictly restrict how you speak about your goals for 1 full week. You are only allowed to use 5 carefully constructed sentences to describe your desires.
And we cannot overstate how crucial language is in this process. The words we speak aloud aren't just sounds. They're the literal building blocks of those neural pathways we discussed earlier. Spoken words reinforce the RAS filtering system.
So these 5 sentences have strict rules. They must include words like always, ease, and speed. For example, you don't walk around saying, I really hope I get a new client this month. Things are so tough.
No, you train your mouth to say, it is always so easy for me to find great opportunities quickly.
Let's look at the psychology of why those specific words matter. The inclusion of words like always and ease signals to your nervous system that this success isn't a rare, highly stressful, once-in-a-lifetime event that requires a massive adrenaline spike.
It normalizes the success. It makes it boringly predictable to your subconscious. If it always happens with ease, your body doesn't need to trigger a fight or flight response to achieve it.
And the absolute masterstroke of this language hack is using past tense, assumption-based questions. This blew my mind.
It's so clever.
Instead of standing in the mirror and affirming, I am incredibly wealthy, which your logical brain might instantly reject by flashing an image of your actual bank account, you ask yourself a question. How did I become so successful so fast?
It is a brilliant psychological backdoor. If you state a positive affirmation that starkly contradicts your current physical reality, your ego immediately throws up a defensive wall and shouts, liar, look at the bank account.
But if you ask the brain a question, how did I become so successful so fast? You bypass the ego's lie detector.
The brain's natural evolutionary function is to search for answers to questions. It is a problem-solving machine. So it stops arguing with you and starts frantically looking for evidence to support the premise of the question. You force the subconscious to go on a scavenger hunt to prove your success.
It's like hacking your own internal search engine. You just type in a better query. But language isn't the only way we rewire the brain. We have to talk about visualization, because the sources are very clear that the vast majority of us are visualizing completely, utterly wrong.
We usually treat visualization like we are sitting alone in a dark movie theater, eating popcorn, and passively watching a movie of our dream life play out on a flat screen in front of us.
Right. You see yourself on the screen, but you are a passive observer. You aren't in the scene.
But effective visualization, the kind that actually moves the needle and shifts you into a new quantum timeline, requires full 360-degree sensory immersion. You cannot be the audience watching the movie. You must be the actor inside the scene, experiencing it in the first person.
We need to bring it back to the physical body. Let's say your goal is a brand new car. You don't just picture a shiny car floating in a blank white room. The text gives a beautiful, grounded example of washing this new car in your driveway.
In your imagination, you have to physically feel the cold, heavy sponge in your hand. You have to smell the distinct, sharp chemical scent of the soapy water. You have to feel the cold water dripping down your forearm and the warmth of the sun on your back.
You are intentionally grounding the imagined reality in visceral, mundane sensory data. You are giving the brain texture and weight.
Or try this one. If you are currently driving your old, beat-up car,
while your hands are physically gripping the worn-out, peeling plastic steering wheel.
You use your imagination to physically feel the grip, the texture, and the warmth of a luxury hand-stitched leather steering wheel under your palms. You superimpose the feeling of the new reality directly over the physical sensation of the old one.
Another great example is coming home. When you open your front door after a long day of work, you don't just look at your current cramped hallway with the
Yeah.
shoes piled up.
In your mind's eye, superimposed directly over the physical space, you see the wide, sweeping, sunlit foyer of your dream home. You do this repeatedly until the imagined reality feels more familiar, more solidly true than the physical one.
And the reason we do this brings us back to neuroplasticity. Your brain, at a biological level, actually cannot tell the difference between a vividly imagined sensory experience and an actual physical event. It fires the exact same neurological sequences.
So, by feeling the soapy water and the leather steering wheel in your mind, you are literally building the physical architecture of your new life inside your brain tissue.
You are laying down the dense neurological track for the new train to run on. When the brain has fired those exact neurons enough times, the new reality becomes its baseline expectation. The RAS adjusts its filters, and the physical world has to mold itself to match the new neurological blueprint.
This all brings us to a massive looming question that I know is hovering heavily in the air right now for anyone
I
listening.
think I know what it is.
If everything is just internal, if reality is just a mirror, and I just need to feel the feeling, rewrite the code, ignore the outside world, and visualize soapy water, do we just sit on the couch in our sweatpants and do absolutely nothing?
Right. Do we just meditate our way to a six-figure paycheck and a perfect marriage without lifting a finger?
That is the most common and perhaps the most dangerous pitfall when studying these concepts. And the materials are absolutely adamant on this point. Action is inevitable.
We live in a physical, three-dimensional world where bodies must move, emails must be sent, and conversations must be had.
But the crucial shift is the nature of the action. It completely transforms from anxious, forced action to inspired action.
This feels like the difference between dragging a massive boulder up a steep hill, sweating and straining, versus simply giving that same boulder a tiny nudge and watching it roll effortlessly down the other side.
That's a great visual. Forced action is what we do when we are trapped in a state of lack. We panic. We blast out 50 generic resumes to jobs we don't even want.
We send frantic double texts to a partner out of deep insecurity.
We exhaust our bodies and minds trying to physically manipulate the external world into giving us what we want. That is forced action. It rarely yields good results, and when it does, it's unsustainable, because the underlying frequency broadcasting out of the speakers is pure desperation.
But inspired action feels entirely different in the body.
Yes. Once you have actually done the internal work, once you have assumed the identity of the new you, the person who already possesses the success, the money, the love, and you've laid down those new neural pathways, your brain begins to naturally operate from that timeline.
And suddenly, seemingly out of nowhere, intuitive thoughts will just pop into your head.
It's those little nudges.
Oh,
Call this specific person right now. Take a different route home and walk into this specific coffee shop today.
read this particular article that randomly popped up on your feed.
And your only job in the physical world, according to the sources, is to listen to that very first intuitive thought and act on it immediately, without letting the analytical ego mind creep in to doubt it or talk you out of it.
You don't sit on the couch, you move. But you move with a profound sense of inevitability. You move because the action feels naturally, organically born from your new identity, not because you're trying to force a stubborn world to yield a result.
It's the difference between being a part-time creator and a full-time creator. That phrase from the texts really encapsulates this entire expansive journey we've been on during this session.
We all begin our lives as part-time creators. We manifest our realities unconsciously by default. We let ourselves be slaves to our fleeting negative thoughts, to the terrifying news cycle, to the bad moods of our coworkers, to the balance in our checking accounts.
We let the external world completely dictate our internal weather, and then we look up at the sky and wonder why it keeps storming on us.
But by mastering our internal state, by rigorously auditing where we invest the currency of our attention, by dropping our rigid conditions for how things must happen, by rewiring our language and soothing our nervous system, we step fully, consciously into the role of full-time creators.
We take our hands off the glass of the mirror, we start trying to force the reflection to smile, and we take complete control of the image at its absolute source, ourselves.
Which brings us to a final reflection, a thought that essentially ties all of these complex materials together into one practical takeaway.
The next time you feel that familiar hot surge of frustration, whether it's a closed door in your career, a delayed text from someone you care deeply about, an intimidating bill in the mail, or just a mundane, irritating comment from someone sitting across from you at a cafe table, I want you to pause.
Feel the physical clink of the coffee spoon. Notice the tension rising in your jaw. Take a breath.
And instead of asking the default, agonizing question of victimhood, why is the world doing this to me? Look directly at the mirror. Look at the painful reflection reality is currently offering you, and ask a fundamentally different, infinitely more powerful question.
What is this reflection asking me to heal within me?
Because the true, ultimate limit to your human potential isn't what the physical world will allow you to have.
It's what you will finally allow yourself to be.